It's the first rose of the year. Hi, I'm Roofe and welcome to Get Gardening, and today we're looking at primroses and primulas and polyanthus, because it's that wonderful time of the year when we get the first rose, the prima rose, and that's how we get its name of primrose. Now this in question is actually a polyanthus, and that's where it gets a little bit confusing, is we have all these wonderful spring flowers which love these sort of areas. Like we've got the perfume corridor here at East Ruston, where it's a little bit of dappled shade, it's got a humusy soil, and where they make up very, very well. But maybe many of you are actually used to a wild primrose, which is Primula vulgaris, that wonderful pale sort of lemon yellow flower which you'll find at the base of hedges or on a north bank or the edge of one of those gullies by the roads, where it's got a little bit of moisture during the winter months when it's getting ready to grow, and it can dry out a little bit in the summer. Now, they're wonderful garden plants, and these ones in particular that I'm holding, these polyanthus, are a strain called Barnhaven. And the Barnhaven primulas and polyanthus are from a company which is now based in France, and it started off in America. And it was Florence Bellis was the lady in question who in about 1940, 1950 decided to start breeding primulas in order to make herself some extra money. Now it's her we have to thank for all these wonderful colours that we have today. Not only some of the original Barnhaven strains that are still going, but all those wonderful primulas and polyanthus which you buy to put in your window boxes, containers and gardens today. So we're going to have a closer look at some primrose and some polyanthus and try and help you decipher the difference between the two and what makes them such wonderful plants for spring. So now we have a wonderful strain here. These are Indian Summer, or the Indian Reds, and they're yet again part of that Barnhaven group. And as you can see, they are also polyanthus. Now polyanthus, as you'll see, have a clear stem, and the actual flowers are borne in clusters, and the name polyanthus means many flowers at the top of that stem, and we call that stem the scape. And it's very much the same that we have for snowdrops, which we always talk about. Snowdrops have a scape as well. As you can see, they're lovely plants, many, many heads of flowers on the top. And what's so good about these particular strains is the wonderful, rich, clear flowers that they have. Then we've got fresh green leaves at the bottom, and that's where the crown of the plant is. And you'll see that over time, they make up from one rosette into multiple rosettes. Now, the secret to keeping them looking this good is to lift and divide on a regular basis. All primroses and polyanthus really benefit from being lifted just after flowering. The clumps need dividing, and they need breaking down into smaller clumps and putting into various areas around the garden. And I like to split up my named cultivars into different areas, just in case I lose a clump. There's always a few more elsewhere, but they really are such beautiful things. This little fella down here is Primula wanda, and it's a subspecies of Primula vulgaris, which is our common primrose, and it's a naturally occurring selection. And as you can see, it differs to the polyanthus, because if you look in here, the flowers are actually produced directly from the crown of the plant. There's no scape coming up, they are just produced in clusters, and it's a lovely little thing, and you will see how it makes up really, really well. And all these individual little rosettes of foliage and flowers make up into these wonderful clumps. Now these have only been here for one season, and I think the secret to them doing well here is that they get a bit of sunlight, but they're also got a bit of shade during the hottest months of the year, and they've got a soil here which is really our old bonfire soil, so it's all the material that's been burnt and composted and mixed together, so it's really quite humus rich. And organic matter is a really important thing for primroses because they like that moisture retention, and it's something which I always have to add in my own garden at home because my soil drains so well. I'm always adding organic matter to retain the moisture around the roots of these primroses. But this is wanda, and it's absolutely lovely. So we've looked at primroses, we've looked at primulas, which is really the botanical name for primrose. We've looked at polyanthus, and then we've got this little one here, and this is a selection of Primula veris. And Primula veris you might know as the cowslip. And the cowslip once again has that scape, and traditionally it has quite a pale yellow single flower. But this is a variety called Cathy McSparran, and selected because of these beautiful double blooms. Now, some of the purists who sort of collect these plants may not like it quite so much, but there is something quite lovely about it, and it harks back to those days of what we call of the wonderful sort of flamboyant old-fashioned primulas, like the Jack in the Rough, which we're dating back to sort of 1700s when these plants were first cultivated. And it's got some of that in it because it has those wonderful rose-like flowers. And you can see how it gets its name, you know, the first rose, because it's got those wonderful pleated blooms. Anyway, Primula veris, particularly good for slightly shaded areas, like we said, relatively moisture-retentive soil, and it gives you good swathes of foliage and abundance of these wonderful, quirky double flowers. Hey!